Hello my beautiful bookish friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Liv if you're new here, and today I'm so happy to share with you my February TBR. Not a great reading month for me. I mean, it was, but not in numbers. I read 4 books and I DNF'd 1, and all of the books that I actually finished were 4 or 5 stars, so that's a great reading month. The numbers were not great, and I keep saying I'm going to shrink my TBRs, but that is definitely not going to happen in this video because I just kept pulling books that I want to read, and there's just so many good books that came out in January that I want to get to. So this is going to be another one of like those long TBR videos. I'm going to continue to do like I did before, where I share my TBR, including my book club, any readathons going on. I'm going to be sharing new releases coming out that I'm hoping to read or buy. We have my TBR jar of 24 books for 2024, and we just have a lot to talk about. Grab yourselves a cup of coffee or a snack, and let's just get into it. First things first, I always like to talk about my Patreon book club called the Tea Time Society Book Club. It is a monthly book club where we discuss live after we read. In my book club, we usually read a pretty big variety of a bunch of different books, although a lot of us are fantasy readers. You do get to choose between 3 choices though. I give you a choice of what is already on my TBR or maybe like some new releases, but for February, we decided to go with Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and my knowledge of this is very little, but when someone said it's romantasy but like Hunger Games, I immediately was sold, and it was unanimous. Everybody basically chose this book for the month, so I'm very excited to see what all of the craze is over this book, and I love this cover. This cover is growing on me very quickly. I just know the romance is incredible in this, and I'm so excited to chat about this with you all. So if you're interested in joining the book club, definitely check out my Patreon below. Another thing that I've been doing over on Patreon that has been so much fun is ever since the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes came out, I have been like back in my Hunger Games era big time. That series is such a nostalgic series for me. So we have been reading starting in January. We started with the Hunger Games, but we are reading a book a month and then doing a movie night at the end of the month. But for February, we obviously are going to be reading the second book, Catching Fire, and it's been such a fun time to just read these slowly. They are such a big comfort read for me. I'm annotating them for the first time, I'm rereading them for the first time, but it has just been so much fun, especially to gush about Peeta and Katniss and all of the reasons why we think this series still holds true today. It's so fast-paced, it's so emotional, so if you guys are Hunger Games fans, you should definitely join along with us. The next thing in February that I'm so incredibly excited about is every other month I do a readathon that is a themed readathon on my Patreon, and obviously February is the month of love, so I decided to theme this readathon around romance or Valentine's Day. You definitely don't have to read like all romance books for these prompts. I tried to choose like some more broad or general prompts so like anyone can read these. This is happening February 9th, 10th, and 11th. We're going to be doing reading sprints that Saturday, but the day before on Friday we're also going to be watching 13 Going on 30 as like a fun little rom-com movie night. So I think it's just going to be so much fun to do that the weekend before Valentine's Day. But I am going to walk you guys through the prompts real quick, and you guys can kind of see what I'll be reading and what I will be vlogging. For the first prompt, you can just read a book with red or pink on the cover, and of course I chose pink because I've been dying to finally read a Lynn Painter book. I've heard this is a great place to start according to my friend Rachel. I've heard this has a lot of like Harry and Sally kind of elements or references to it, and this is a young adult romance, which usually I do not gravitate towards whatsoever, but I've heard it's really cute and her stories are just more heartfelt and less on like the insta-love kind of spicy stuff, and so I think I'm really gonna end up loving Lynn Painter. I think she could be like the next Emily Henry or Abby Jimenez for me, so I'm very excited to finally get into this one. one. The next prompt is just to pick a book that gives you those warm, fuzzy feelings like you are in love. And for this one, I chose a Sarah Adams book, Practice Makes Perfect. This is the second one. The first one is When in Rome. As you can see, I do have a bookmark here, and I did start tabbing this and I was loving it, and I don't know what happened. I read the first 40 pages and I just never came back to it. But Sarah Adams is such a comfort author for me. I will basically read anything that she writes, and I still have quite a few of her books to catch up on because I've only read 2 of them, and both of them were 5 stars for me. And this one follows some characters from When in Rome, and I loved those characters in When in Rome. I think this one is kind of like a fake dating kind of trope. I'm just really excited to finally get into another Sarah Adams, and this readathon will be the perfect time. And the last prompt is just one of my favorite romance tropes of all time, which is just to read a book that has friends to lovers in it. And I don't know if this is technically friends to lovers, but I definitely know they're not enemies, and that is Lore Olympus Volume 4. I love using graphic novels for my readathons. When you just need a little bit of a break from reading words on the page, graphic novels are perfect for this, and I've been waiting for forever to get back into this, and now Volume 5 is out, and I have a lot of catching up to do, and I just feel like this color palette is so like romantic and Valentine's Day, so I am stretching the prompt a little bit probably, but honestly I don't care because I really want to read this. I also created a romance trope bingo board that you all can use instead of doing the prompts, or you can do both if you want to. So I just picked a bunch of romance tropes that I love to create this bingo board, but feel free to check everything out on my Patreon. I am running a free trial membership right now on Patreon for the first 2 tiers, and the readathon is for the second tier. So if you just want to join that week for free to join the readathon and just hang out with us on reading sprints and kind of experience a little bit of what my Patreon is like, you can join for free for a week. So go ahead and check that out. I hope you join us, and I seriously can't wait. Next we have, you all guessed it, if you were around for my January TBR, we have the 2024 jar where I put 24 books that are high on my list or on my physical TBR only to pick 2, and I get to choose between those 2 which one I think I'm going to read. And if it's a hard decision, I'll just add them both to my cart and I'll decide what I'm in the mood for, but that way I'm a little less strict on myself and I have more of an option versus like, here's the one book you have to read. And let me just say, the month of January, that did not work for me. So I think what I'm gonna do is, if I read my book of the month from here, I'm going to reward myself or allow myself to purchase a new book. So I think this will actually be a good incentive to meet this goal, and also just to help me read what I own on my shelves, because that was one of my goals this year. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and pick 2. I really hope it's a fantasy, but also I have a lot of fantasy on my radar this month. All right, let's see what the first one is. I think purple is fantasy, but I don't remember. Oh, it's Spells for Forgetting. Okay, I could go with that. I feel like that's more of like a fall book, but honestly, I'm not mad about it. I'm really hoping for a pink one because I think that's more romance. So I'm just going to... Oh, I did pick a pink one. Okay. Oh gosh. What if it's one I don't want to read though? Oh my gosh, this is perfect. It's Better Than the Movies, which I already have on my TBR. So we're definitely going to be reading this one. I'm going to hold on to Spells for Forgetting, but I'm obviously going to read this one for my readathon. So that works out perfectly. That worked out great. Now we are going to get into the segment of this video, which is honestly my favorite, where I'm going to talk about some new releases that I already have ARCs for, or am planning to buy, or just books in general that are coming out in February. I tried doing like these quarterly release videos, but they're just so long. It's so much hard work. So honestly, I'd rather just talk about the books coming out this month and make you aware of those. And the first one on this list is called The Tainted Cup, which is going to be a new adult urban fantasy kind of science fiction mystery. At first, I thought this was going to be more like a cozy type of fantasy, but according to the synopsis, it doesn't sound like that. I will spare you the details, but this just says at the end here, featuring featuring an unforgettable Holmes and Watson writing style pairing and a haunting and wholly original fantasy world. The Tainted Cup brilliantly reinvents the classic mystery tale. I love the cover to this too. I'm kind of hoping there ends up being a little bit of gold foil, and we have some skulls there on the flowers, which I think is super cool. This one is already getting a lot of hype, and I read the first sentence and immediately was sold, so maybe this will sell you all too. It says, in Daratana's most opulent mansion, a high imperial officer lies dead, killed to all appearances when a tree spontaneously erupted from his body. Like, what is happening? I don't know, but I need to know. So I'm very excited to grab this one. It comes out on February 6th, so not long by the time you see this video. Next, we also have coming out on the 6th is Ali Hazelwood's new book called Bride. As far as I know, this is just a vampire werewolf type of adult love story, and honestly, I've never been interested in any of her books previously, but this art style and just the synopsis itself is making me really nostalgic of Twilight. So I think I might end up getting this one because the reviews are already super high. Hopefully this one will be super fun, and I might even purchase it and save it for like September going into spooky season, but I know a lot of other people are excited about this one too. Next, we have The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Katherine Arden, and I feel like it's been a really long time since we've gotten an adult fantasy book by Katherine Arden. This one is actually a historical fantasy book about a girl who is trying to find her brother during the war, and she hears of some type of, I think it's a hotel that has some type of time jumping portal, and she's wondering if her brother somehow got sucked into it. I don't know where she's gonna take this story, but I've heard it's actually a pretty emotional read, and with the way historical fantasy has been going lately with divine rivals, I feel like this could be a new favorite like subgenre for me. I actually have an arc on my Kindle. All of that to say, her writing is impeccable, and I just can't wait to get another book from her. Next, we have an adult book that is a little bit more of a magical realism book called The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. If you could open a door to anywhere, where would you go? In New York City, bookseller Cassie Andrews is living in an unassuming life when she is given a gift by a favorite customer. It's a book, an unusual book, full of strange writing and mysterious drawings. And at the very front, there is a handwritten message to Cassie, telling her that this is the Book of Doors and that any door is every door. What Cassie is about to discover is that the Book of Doors is a special book that bestows an extraordinary power on whoever possesses it. But the Book of Doors is not the only magical book in the world. There's something about this that just sounds so fun and whimsical and possibly emotional, and I love books about books, so I think this one is going to be a really unique but really fun book. Next, we have A Tempest of Tea, and this is probably my most anticipated of this month, and I really hope it doesn't let me down. But this one has vampires, and there's like a tea shop where these vampires are hidden. It's been a while since we've gotten like a paranormal type of fantasy, and honestly this cover is just selling me. I know this author also wrote We Hunt the Flame, but I never tried that one. I was hearing mixed reviews, but something about this one is just really pulling me in, so I hope it's the fantasy that we've all been waiting for. Okay, those are the few books coming out in the month of February that I'm super excited to get to, that I will probably be reading the day they come out. So this TBR is definitely going to be longer than I thought, and the rest of these books are honestly just going to be kind of like mood reading books. But one book that I absolutely have to finish, I started it, it's super long, it's 850 pages, I bet you guys can already guess what it is. It is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. When I tell you I can't put this book down, I can't put this book down, cannot stop thinking about it. Like, all I can think about right now while I'm filming, while I'm editing, during work, I just can't stop wondering what's gonna happen to these characters, and I'm terrified but also so excited at the same time. I'm kind of just savoring this book and reading it slowly. It is just one of her most hyped anticipated books. If you've read Crescent City too, you know what I'm talking about. But I have been vlogging my experience with this book when I went to go get it. I haven't done like a dedicated vlog for one book, I don't think, ever. That will be coming hopefully next week. week, and I'm just really excited but also really terrified to see what happens. Next, I'm going to be finally diving into the Lord of the Rings world, starting with The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I am so excited. I am obsessed with the Lord of the Rings movies. I was obsessed as a child. I love the soundtracks. I lived and breathed Lord of the Rings at one point in my life, and have I read the books? No. I still haven't read the books, and this book actually is not long at all. It's like 280 pages, and my friend Rachel and I think Elizabeth might even join me for this because they also love Lord of the Rings or have been wanting to get into this series, and I have this beautiful, stunning, like illustrated 75th anniversary edition. I know it's going to be such a blast, especially because I'm going to get the audio by Andy Serkis, who plays Gollum, and I've heard he even does the voice of Gollum, and I'm terrified but excited all at once. I know this is just going to unlock so many memories for me. I finally just realized that this year is going to be the year of comfort reads for me, and that's going to include the Lord of the Rings series because it just brings me so much happiness. I also have a brand new release called The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. This is actually fairly small. It's like 340 pages. I believe it's a standalone, but don't quote me on that. This book is stunning, you guys. Look at the end pages, and it's not even a special edition. A curse can be many things. For the release, it begins with Stardust. This book is giving me all the Strange the Dreamer, Starless Sea type of vibes, and I know this is just going to be full of lush, beautiful descriptions, and I hope a beautiful story as well. Another book that I've been really scared to pick up, I think because the hype is so big right now, is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez, and I don't know, something about this intimidates me, maybe because it's historical. I don't know much about this one, but I do know it's romantasy, and I just can't with these end pages. This is such a stunning book. I also know Isabel is friends with Rebecca Ross, and I feel like they're just gonna have similar vibes and similar ways that they write, and so I feel like this could be kind of like a hidden gem for me that might end up being a favorite of the year. The last fantasy book on my list is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. You guys will have to wait until I think August 6th-ish or 8th until this book drops, but I loved A Study in Drowning. I screamed when I saw that I got approved on NetGalley for this arc because this book is a retelling of Shakespeare's Macbeth. It is tragic, it's horrific, it's sad, it's also just such a crazy kind of manipulative story. I personally like the story. I think it's super cool. It's like one of my favorite Shakespeare's, but this one is a retelling, which I feel like is a massive undertaking for someone to do, and this one is adult, and I've never read any of her adult books yet, so I'm a little bit scared, but I've heard that this one just has a great message to it, and the way she writes is just stunning and beautiful and unique and captivating, so I'm really excited to see how she puts her own twist on this classic story. Jumping into a couple thrillers here because I might need a couple to get me through some of these longer fantasy books. I have Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. I've actually been reading this a little bit on and off for the past couple weeks, and it is incredible, you guys. It's incredible. This is probably going to be my favorite book of hers yet. The Soulmate was not really my favorite. It was kind of like a 3-star, but she's making a huge comeback with this one. Let me tell you, it has made me so emotional. That also could be because my own sisters were in foster care for a while, and this one has to do with 3 sisters that were in foster care. They're now older, and they all get a call saying that the house that they grew up at, they're tearing down to make a McDonald's, but they ended up finding bones of a body. And so we kind of go back and forth in time, and we kind of figure out what in the world happened because all of these girls know something about this body, and I'm just so intrigued. It's so fascinating. It's also just really emotional and kind of sad to think that a lot of foster care homes can be this way. It's just one of those really crazy books that's hitting home for me, and I'm taking it very slow because it's a very hard-hitting read, but definitely one that's much needed, and I just can't wait to see where she takes the story. Next, I have a book that is part of a really popular series, and I don't know how it made a comeback. The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes was really popular, I think, a couple years ago. I read that one and I thought it was okay, but I've heard the Naturals series is even better. This one is about teenagers who all have supernatural powers that apparently help the FBI to crack cases, so it's a little bit of like Criminal Minds, but it's young adult. But it just seems like a really fast-paced, addicting kind of series. Again, just adding a couple thrillers to get me through some of these longer books. Next, I do have 3 manga on this list that I would love to get back back into. Two of them are from series I've already started and another one is brand new. But the first one I've had my eye on is Frieren Beyond Journey's End. This is like a cozy fantasy, and this elf basically is taking a step back from fighting and she takes on an apprentice. It's more of like a slice of life kind of cozy fantasy, but I'm really enjoying it. There's now a show out, so I would love to catch up on this series. I also have Witch Hat Atelier Volume 10. I have had this in my possession for months now. It's like my favorite manga series of all time. I'm just waiting for the day when they announce the show, but I honestly don't know if they're going to do it justice because the detail that is in the drawings of this series is amazing. It's so phenomenal. It's everything you could want in a fantasy. And last, I have Cat and Gamer Volume 1 about a girl who basically just has like an office job. She's pretty lonely, she doesn't have much of a social life, but she finds this stray cat who she takes in. They just learn each other's personality, and I think this cat is actually pretty funny. I'm kind of flipping through here and seeing some really funny things, so I can tell this is going to be one for the cat lovers out there. And last but definitely not least, my Christian nonfiction of the month is going to be Lisa Turker's Good Boundaries and Goodbyes. I actually started this in December? Yeah, December, and I did not get very far, and I don't know why I didn't finish this. I think I just thought, oh, well, I can't finish it in 2023, so I'm just gonna put it down, but I really want to pick this one back up again. It has been so eye-opening for me as someone that is a people pleaser that doesn't really know how to set boundaries. It has been a huge learning curve for me to know how to do that, know what boundaries are, how to just manage your relationships in general, and she shares her own life experience along with it. It's just been incredible. I can already feel God working in my heart a lot as I read this, but this one might be my favorite one of hers yet if I could actually just finish it. But this has just been so good and so healing for me to read this book right now. Alright friends, there you have it. My very, very long February TBR. I'm actually surprised not more romance is on this TBR. I definitely did not make that intentional, but I think I'm just really leaning into my fantasy era again this year. You guys already know. But let me know what's on your February TBR. Let me know if there's any good romance books you're looking forward to that are coming out that I need to get. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching this video and supporting my channel, and I will see you in my next video.